Thank you for checking out our first ActiveReno video interview. My name is Ryan Evans. One of our goals at ActiveReno is to feature an athlete every month. If you know of a local athlete we should talk to, please let us know. Send us an email at info@activereno.com. July's athlete interview is sponsored by ActiveReno. ActiveReno is located at 18 Stewart Street, across the parking lot from the Starbucks on California and Virginia. For our inaugural interview, we have with us today Scott Young. Scott is a professional triathlete and coach. He has been on top of the local triathlon scene for the past decade. In today's interview, we will cover some general questions about Scott's training that beginners and novice triathletes can gain information from, and then progress into some more technical questions that may interest an elite level athlete. Thank you, Scott, for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with the basics. Give us some background. Where were you born? How long have you been in Reno? And when did you get into racing triathlons?
Well, I was actually born in Reno, Nevada, but my parents lived at a small army base a few hours north of Reno called Hurlong, California. And so after my birth, they drove back to California, and that's where I spent the first 18 years of my life.
After that, you went on to be a college basketball player. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I played basketball in high school, and since we were such a small high school, it was one of the few sports that were offered there. And I went on to play at a couple junior colleges in California, and that led me to Chico State University. And it was my intent to play basketball there, but after a few months going out for the team, things didn't go quite as well as I thought, and which ended up being a blessing in disguise for me, because that's when I was introduced to triathlons. I joined the club triathlon team at Chico State and have been doing it ever since.
Cool. When did you move to Reno?
I moved to Reno in 1990.
Okay. And how long have you been a professional triathlete?
I turned pro in 1996, so 13 years now.
Cool. And as a professional triathlete, how do you become a professional? Do you have to win a certain amount of races, move up in the rankings? How does that work?
The Triathlon Federation sets the minimum standards for elite competition. They've changed over the years, and basically it comes down to finishing within 8% of the overall winner's time in races that they've deemed to be high caliber races. So they've set that level at races that offer $5,000 prize money and above. So within a calendar year, to become a new professional, you have to finish in 3 races within the 8% of the overall winner's time in races that have $5,000 prize money or more. And once you become a professional, every 3 years you have to recertify your professional license, and that is done by doing 1 race, I believe. And so it changes from time to time, so It's hard to keep up with it.
Cool. Yeah. Could you go ahead and name some of your sponsors?
Yeah. Currently, I'm sponsored by my main sponsors are Mizuno running shoes and running equipment, and GOO energy system. So I'm sure most of the people have used GOO or heard of GOO. And then a couple of local sponsors, Eclipse Running and Racing, and Bicycle Warehouse.
Okay. Cool. And as a pro, as well as being a pro triathlete, you also have a coaching service. You do the classes at UNR, triathlon, and a marathon class.
Right.
Could you explain to us about those classes and your coaching service, please?
Right. I teach a triathlon training class at the University of Nevada and a marathon training class, and I've been doing that since 2001. We started off with about 15 people, and we had 1 section back in 2001, and it's grown over the years to where now we have 4 triathlon classes, and we have almost 200 students.
Wow.
That take 1 or more than 1 of the classes there.
Okay.
And I also have a coaching business on the side where I coach multi-sport athletes, and that could be triathletes, marathon runners, swimmers, whatever, all ability levels, and I've been doing that for about 15 years now.
Okay. If for the UNR triathlon classes, do you have to be a full-time student, or can someone just want to use those classes to get in shape, but they're a business professional? How does that work?
Oh, you can take just one of the classes. We have several people who have graduated and gone on to the working world, and they still make time to take a class here and there. And we have some people in their 50s that are taking it who have careers, and they just like the class and the structure of it. And so the majority of the kids, though, are students at the university.
Okay. And if someone's interested in your coaching service, could you pass along your contact information?
Absolutely. It's tryscottyoung.com. My email address is saycoach@yahoo.com. Thanks for asking.
Excellent. Moving on to some more technical type questions. You're 42 years old and you're still racing and you're training very well. Do you believe that too many people limit what they can accomplish based on their age?
Yes, I do, actually. And I've had this conversation a lot. I do believe in it. I think it is a prevailing thought in our society that as you get older, athletically, that you are unable to do the things that you were able to do when you were young. And to a certain extent that is true, but I don't believe that it is as true as most people would think. Mm-hmm. I believe that as you get older, and science has proven this true, that your cardiovascular system improves into the 4th and 5th decade of your life. And the problem, I think, with most people is they think that they can't, so therefore they stop doing it. Mm-hmm. So they think, oh, I'm older, I'm not going to be as fast, so they stop training like they were when they were younger. And so just by the process of doing less or not training properly, the results are slower times, and most people tend to attribute that to their age.
Okay, but in reality it's them using their age as an excuse, so they stop training.
Right, and
okay.
it kind of becomes mentally crippling to them. The one thing that does happen in the research that I've done is the connective tissue of older athletes tends to be less resilient, like ligaments, tendons, they tend to become injured over time. So an older athlete is more susceptible to injury, and therefore his training starts to suffer because of that. But if you can stay on top of your flexibility, cooling down, weight training and things like that to offset this loss, then I believe that you're able to continue into your 40s and maybe even your 50s. I know there are lots of fast master swimmers at age 50 and certainly 40. And obviously with time you're going to slow down, but I don't think that it has to be as soon as most people would think.
Okay. Kind of going along on the mental side of that, in 2005, I did the Pyramid Lake Triathlon. You won it easily by a couple minutes. Later that afternoon, I was driving around town. I saw you and your wife out on a run. How do you stay motivated to keep that training up throughout the past since 1996 when you turned pro?
Well, I've always been very competitive. I grew up in a pretty big family. I had older brothers. I was the youngest. And that's just one of the ways that we entertained ourselves. We were always competing against each other. And I was always trying to prove myself because I was the youngest. And as far as I'm concerned, I look at life as just one big competition. Whatever it is, I try to be first or at least challenge myself. So it's fun for me. Mm-hmm. I like the challenge of triathlons, I like to go to a master swim practice and swim with some of the best swimmers, including yourself, and come back to town and see how I can do. And that's just something that I really enjoy, and I feel lucky that I'm able to do it.